Cheers, vinyl community. Aaron here with part two in my 20 and 20 or less series. Today we're going to be talking about my 20 favorite soundtracks in my record collection here behind me. Not much of a criteria for this one, if it's a good soundtrack or if it's one that has an emotional connection with me from my childhood. It made the list. No scores. The scores will be added into a separate list because as an adult, I'm really big into scores now. Whereas growing up, I was really huge into movie soundtracks. I was a big movie buff growing up. So I'm going to move right on in now to number 20. I'm going to try to get this done in 20 or less. Not another teen movie soundtrack. Not a very good movie. It's a spoof. However, the music on this is absolutely fabulous. This was done by Brookvale Records and Enjoy the Ride. This is an Enjoy the Ride Records variant, numbered 479. I'm not sure out of how many. They call this the John Hughes variant. No idea why. But what they did, since this was a spoof movie of all the teen movies, they took modern bands from the 90s and the early 2000s, from rock and nu metal and that genres, and they redone rock and new wave albums or songs from the 1980s. So we got Tainted Love, but it's the Marilyn Manson version. Blue Monday, but by Orgy. A couple Depeche Mode covers, one by Scott Weiland, one by the Smashing Pumpkins. Got Goldfinger doing their cover of 99 Red Balloons, which is, I mean, come on. If you're a 90s kid, that's the version. Phantom Planet, Somebody's Baby, Good Charlotte, If You Leave. There's just a lot of really good new wave and 80s covers done by modern bands. So yeah, in the early 2000s, this one was pretty big for me. So when they pressed it recently to vinyl, of course I had to get it. And it doesn't hurt that it's on a beautiful colorway and numbered and limited. So that's number 20. Number 19, moving right along, is Singles. I've never seen the movie. I've been told that it's not great. I have it on VHS. Here's my VHS collection. It runs the entire length of the room back there. I have it on VHS. I've never seen it. I've heard it's not very good. But the music obviously is legendary for early 90s, mid 90s grunge and alt rock standards. You got Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Chris Cornell, Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins, Mudhoney, Paul Westerberg, Jimi Hendrix. That's kind of a thrown in there. And then Screaming Trees. As an adult, I appreciate this album a lot. I listen to it frequently, and it's a great addition. I don't have any kind of emotional connection to it, so it's down low on the list, but that does not mean that it's not a great album. And now I'm going to take a quick pause for the cause, because I think I'm going to have time. I'm going to keep this under 20. Here's my original press, number 18. Original pressing with the poster inside of there of Purple Rain. Another one. I have it. I've never actually watched the movie. But the music is great. It's one of my favorite soundtracks. If I'm going to throw in some kind of 80s throwback kind of thing, this is one of the ones I go to pretty frequently. Number 17, my favorite movie of all time. You'll find the score to this showing up in a different video, but the soundtrack's a little bit lower because the soundtrack doesn't resonate as much as the score to me, but it is my favorite movie of all time. Quentin Tarantino's writing debut, I believe. Screenplay by Quentin Tarantino. This is True Romance. And this is the feather pillow blood splatter version of said album. And this is a artist rendition of my favorite scene in the movie, where you have Dennis Hopper talking to Christopher Walken and telling him the history of his bloodline, and he spits blood out into his rag and he asks for a cigarette. He takes the last drag of his cigarette and then boom, he pulls the trigger. It is probably writing wise one of the best scenes ever written and acted in any cinema. There is that Soundgarden outshined on this. Hans Zimmer's Amid the Chaos of the Day. Chris Isaac kind of does the Elvis type sound So he was a perfect fit for this movie because Clarence, the main character, was obsessed with Elvis. Charlie Sexton, John Waite, Charles and Eddie, Nymphomania, and some more Hans Zimmer. Like I said, the soundtrack isn't as amazing as the score or the movie, but it does bring back some feels, and I love the artwork and the colorway. So threw it in at number 17. I think that was 20, 19, 18, 7. Yeah, 16. I haven't seen the movie but once when it first came out back in. Oh, I don't. It doesn't even say on the back here, but this was a recent record store day. I Am Sam. This is a Beatles covers movie album here. We got Amy Mann doing Two of Us, Sarah McLachlan doing Blackbird, Rufus Wainwright, Across the Universe. That is one of the all-time best covers. Wallflowers, Eddie Vedder, Ben Harper, Sheryl Crow, Ben Folds, The Vines, Stereophonics, The Black Crowes, Heather Nova, Howie Day, Paul Westerberg doing Nowhere Man, and Nick Cave's Let It Be. I mean, come on. This is an absolute gem of an album. It doesn't hold the emotional attachment, so it's lower on the list, but because I don't even remember the movie. But all I know is some of the best Beatles covers of all time are on this, and it actually sounds really good. And it was a recent record store day pickup, so that comes in there. Number 16. 15. Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare Before Christmas. And unfortunately, I have the picture discs. It is what it is. I picked it up super cheap, like $8 or something like that. As far as a kids movie goes, especially a Disney kids movie, Tim Burton movie, Danny Elfman score and lyrics. I'm not sure if he did the lyrics, to be honest with you. Yes, it says music and lyrics by Danny Elfman. He's a genius. Probably my all-time favorite score and composer overall. You can't really go wrong with anything Danny Elfman when he works with Tim Burton. So 15, Nightmare Before Christmas, perfect addition. 14, pick this one up at Newberry Comics off the shelf. This is the 2013, I think, maybe. Yeah, 2014 Record Store Day, emerald green vinyl version of Wizard of Oz. I mean, Wizard of Oz is one of the best movies of all time. It's timeless. You can watch it over and over and over. And everybody knows pretty much every lyric to every song. And this is just a really nice, clean, modernized version of that. It sounds great. It looks great. It's beautiful. It's nice and clean. Number 13 is a movie that in my early 2000s, I obsessed over the movie. And I obsessed over the soundtrack even more than the movie. Juno. I love this movie. I still love the movie, but I appreciated it more when I was younger. Got the Moldy Peaches, and obviously Michael Cera and Ellen Page doing their version of Anyone Else But You. I shook a little turd out of the bottom of your pants. A lot of the music on here is done by an indie artist named Kimya Dawson. There's Belle and Sebastian, Barry Louise Polisar doing All I Want Is You. The Kinks, Buddy Holly doing Dearest. Piazza, New York Catcher by Belle and Sebastian is another great track. It's about Mike Piazza, but it's just a really great song. Then Superstar by Sonic Youth kind of rounds it out. It is an indie darling soundtrack to an indie darling movie. I absolutely adore both to this day. So Juno, number 13. All right, number 12. One of my favorite movies as a teenager, being the fat kid in school who got picked on. I appreciated this movie way more than most. Angus. It's about a story about Angus Bethune, and his friend who was a fat kid in school. He got voted prom king, and he had to learn how to dance and make his way into the popular crowd, even though he was voted prom king as a joke. Anyways, great movie. Great coming of age tale. But the soundtrack on this baby, done by SRC Vinyl. This is my blue vinyl version. Got Green Day doing Jar, Ash, Dancehall Crashers, the Riverdales, Smoking Popes, Weezer, Green Day, Goo Goo Dolls, Pansy Division, Spit Love. It doesn't get much more B-side 90s than this soundtrack. It doesn't have hits on it as much as it does just great. It's a great period timepiece for the mid to late 90s. alt rock grunge scene. It takes you back to the 90s by listening to this. Number 11 just came out recently. It's one of my favorite horror movies of the 2000s. House of a Thousand Corpses by Rob Zombie. I love the artwork on this. This was done by Waxwork Records. I picked up the blood splattered edition. It has a lot of original music by Rob Zombie. It kind of is the score and the soundtrack put into one. I threw it in the soundtrack section because the best songs on this are the Rob Zombie originals, including the hit song House of a Thousand Corpses. It does have other weird things on it, like a Buck Owens song, a song by the Ramones, Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue, a Slim Whitman track of all things, and then a bunch of Brick House 2003, Rob Zombie featuring Lionel Richie. Off the wall, kind of weird stuff, but this is one of the coolest movies ever, and a heck of a horror score, and amazing artwork. So number 11, House of a Thousand Corpses. Running into number 10, one of my most watched movies of the 90s, an original press I picked up for $20. This was back when this was a lot more expensive because it wasn't ever repressed. This is the Wayne's World soundtrack. Jumping right in, got Bohemian Rhapsody. They made that song famous to a whole new generation. Cinderella, Bullet Boys, Gary Wright doing Dreamweaver, Black Sabbath, Time Machine, Tia Carrere doing Ballroom Blitz, Foxy Lady, Jimi Hendrix, Feed My Frankenstein, Lovin' Your Lovin' by Eric Clapton, and then Why You Wanna Break My Heart by Tia Carrere to end the album. Perfect album. Look at that. I love that. But yeah, Wayne's World, number 10 on my list. One of my all-time favorite comedies, and one of the best early 90s representations on vinyl. Number 9, another early to mid-90s movie that I didn't associate with as a kid because I was too young, but I always loved the music to it, is Reality Bites. The soundtrack does not sound the greatest. This was done as a very short run, quickly sold out. It's selling for over $100 now. This was done recently. I think it was an Urban Outfitters thing. I picked it up for like $15. Now it's like $130. It's stupid. Doesn't even sound great. But another great representation of 1994. The Knack My Sharona, Spin the Bottle by Julia Hatfield, The Posies. The reason that this is one of the most popular soundtracks, it was Lisa Loeb, Nine Stores Don't Stay, I Missed You, which is one of my top favorite 90s pop rock songs. Some U2, Crowded House, Lenny Kravitz, Ethan Hawke, Dinosaur Jr., Turnip Farm, Squeeze, Big Mountain Baby, I Love Your Way from 1994, the cover of that. An absolute treasure of a 90s album. Number 8 is one that I searched for quite a long time. Netherlands pressing. I don't think it's ever been pressed again on vinyl. The 1998 Godzilla movie starring Matthew Broderick. I had this on CD. I don't think any movie in the history of movies was ever marketed as much as the 1998 Godzilla movie. I was all in, and then it ended up not being that good of a movie, but I remember seeing it. I remember the marketing campaign. I remember Burger King toys, everything. But the soundtrack with Puff Daddy, got Heroes by the Wallflowers, Come With Me by Puff Daddy featuring Jimmy Page, Jamiroquai, Rage Against the Machine, Ben Folds 5, Days of the New, Fuel, Foo Fighters, Green Day, Silverchair, and then the score on the D side. I think this was only ever pressed, like I said, in the Netherlands. This is on this insanely neon lime green vinyl. Somewhere in my teenage years, I became obsessed with the movie The Blues Brothers. It was one I would fall asleep to almost every night. Carrie Fisher, and then you obviously have Donald Duck Dunn, Matt Murphy, Tom Malone, Lou Marini, Willie Hall, Steve Cropper, Murphy Dunn, and then obviously John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and it's got James Brown, Cab Calloway, Ray Charles, Carrie Fisher, Aretha Franklin. Oh my, the theme from Rawhide, Minnie the Moocher, Sweet Home Chicago, Jailhouse Rock, Give Me Some Lovin', Shake Your Tail Feather by Ray Charles. Come on. Anytime, any day, I would put this up against almost anything as being one of the best, if not the best, movie soundtrack ever. Number 6, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this one. I've talked about it quite a bit recently. Red Dead Redemption 2 video game soundtrack. It's the score and the soundtrack, but the best part of it is the soundtrack featuring D'Angelo doing Unshaken. Daniel Lanois does a lot of the score and some of the lyrical things like That's the Way It Is and Moonlight. Rihanna Giddens doing Mountain Hymn. Let's see here. Willie Nelson's Cruel, Cruel World. And then Josh Homme from, what's the Queens of the Stone Age doing Cruel, Cruel World at the end. And then the score stuff in between on red vinyl, 45 RPM. Gorgeous press. I'm trying to speed this up because I'm seeing I'm almost hitting 20 minutes. We're down to the top 5. Nothing screams 90s like the movie Empire Records. So this is my number 5. I have number 4030. This was a Record Store Day press from 2012. I had this on CD growing up. I listened to it constantly then. This was another one that back in, it came out in 1995. I probably didn't understand the plight of late teens working in a record store or the appreciation of record stores in general being that cool of a place to be at this time. But as an adult, it's my most watched movie, and the scene at the end featuring Coyote Shivers doing Sugar High, where you have Renee Zellweger singing like this made-up background vocal on top of the roof with all these people down below drinking beer and their long hair and their hairspray. I tell you, there's nothing more 90s than watching that scene featuring them on the rooftop at the end of Empire Records. But it's got Gin Blossoms, the Cranberries, Edwyn Collins, A Girl Like You, the Martinis, Toad the Wet Sprocket, Cracker, I'm trying to think of Evan Dandy, not El Dandy, doing the Ballad of El Goodo, which is my favorite song by Big Star. And yeah, absolutely perfect representation of childhood in the late 90s right there. Granted, it was a little bit before my time, but it still resonates to this day. I played Brad in Rocky Horror, so I'd be remiss that that was my dream role in my dream show, and something that I was in musical theater in high school all the way up until recently, where I've kind of retired from that because I have so many kids and so many responsibilities. But my dream show, and I got to be Brad, which is me in a nutshell, the asshole. Rocky Horror is probably my most watched movie of all time, and definitely know every inch of the soundtrack, both to the movie and to the Broadway now version of that. I may try at some point, probably right here, to insert a picture of me as Brad Majors. And if I didn't, and I forgot to do that in editing, so be it. But we're down to the top 3, and we're already at over 20 minutes on this before editing, so I'm going to try to roll this along. Number 3, another movie that had a viral marketing campaign for 1995. This was, at the time, never got an official vinyl pressing. This was a promo only. This is Batman Forever. I listened to this thing more than anything that year, or maybe for the next several years. So when I found this on vinyl, it brought back so many memories that I went and bought it on CD, cassette, and the most recent reissue. Mazzy Star, PJ Harvey, Brandy, U2, Seal, Kiss from a Rose, Eddie, Bad Days by the Flaming Lips. That is the reason that Flaming Lips is in my top 5 favorite bands of all time. To have it on vinyl, and to have all the other versions of it that I have, I'm stoked. I listen to this one still frequently. And just like in my last one, number 2 and number 1 are absolutely tied. The 2 best movie soundtracks of all time are in my collection, and I have no qualms about it. Dazed and Confused and Dumb and Dumber. We're going to talk about Dazed and Confused first. This was music before my time, but the movie really resonated with me. Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, Rick Derringer, School's Out, Alice Cooper, Black Oak, Arkansas, ZZ Top, Nazareth, Ted Nugent, The Runaways, Fox on the Run by Sweet, Lowrider, Tuesdays Gone by Skinner, Deep Purple's Highway Star, Kiss, Rock and Roll All Night, and Paranoid by Black Sabbath. A perfect album from beginning to end, to one of the best coming of age teen movie stories ever told. And of course, we have Dumb and Dumber, my favorite comedy. And this was done also by SRC vinyl. I don't remember if I have the red or the blue. It's something that doesn't really matter. But it doesn't get more 90s than Dumb and Dumber. It doesn't get more 90s soundtrack than Dumb and Dumber. Crash Test Dummies, Dead-Eyed Dick doing New Age Girl. It's one of my favorite songs still to this day. Echo Belly, Pete Droge, The Primitives, Willie Oneblood's Whiny Whiny, Gigolo Ants, Where I Find My Heaven is still another one of my all-time favorites. Butthole Surfers covering Hurdy Gurdy Man, which is a Donovan track. Proclaimers, Green Jelly's The Bear. The bear went over the mountain to see what he could see. Come on. You couldn't get away with that crap now in the 90s. Come on. Dumb and Dumber, great way to end this. So I'm going to try to edit this down to 20. It may be a little bit over 20 because I get a little bit overzealous. I love my movies. I love my soundtracks. Pause for the cause. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be back in another week or two with my top 20 favorite scores of all time. And I'm going to try to keep it at 20 minutes or thereabouts, because that's the whole theme of the whole thing. I want to get you guys in and out, and I also appreciate you all so much. I've had so many nice feedback, so much nice comments, and I'd love to know what your favorite movies are, what your favorite soundtracks are. Share with me in the comments. Find me on Facebook and friend me, and let me know that you found me through YouTube or the vinyl community. Got to keep the vinyl community alive and well. It's 2020, and I'm very alive and well and back into the swing of things. So I want to thank you guys for watching my video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Cheers to you all. And I'll see you on the next one. Enjoy the music.